instant rewards, and a hometown touch.
Hi, we're going to go back to Aspen, Colorado, where we see the Attorney General Loretta Lynch getting ready to sit down right now with Washington Post Jonathan Capehart. Going to keep an eye. Since they're sitting down, we might as well listen in as they're getting started.
And also an MSNBC contributor. Thank you all for being here this morning. Attorney General, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So as Walter said, you have a reputation of having the highest integrity, utmost solid judgment. So when people heard what went down in Phoenix, a lot of people were like, I mean, friends, supporters, backers were saying, what on earth was she thinking talking to Bill Clinton? So, what on earth were you thinking? What happened?
Well, I think that's the question of the day, isn't it?
Yeah, yes.
And I think that's a perfectly reasonable question. I think that's the question that is called, by what happened in Phoenix, because people have also wondered and raised questions about my role in the ultimate resolution of matters involving the investigation into the State Department emails. And to the extent that people have questions about that, about my role in that, certainly my meeting with him raises questions and concerns. And so, believe me, I completely get that question. And I think it is the question of the day. But I think the issue is, again, what is my role in how that matter is going to be resolved? And so let me be clear on how that is going to be resolved. I've gotten that question a lot also over time, and we usually don't go into those but I do think it's important that people see what that process is like. As I've always indicated, the matter is being handled by career agents and investigators with the Department of Justice. They've had it since the beginning. They are independent.
Which predates your tenure as Attorney General.
It predates my tenure as Attorney General. It is the same team, and they are acting independently. They follow the law. They follow the facts. That team will make findings. That is to say, they will come up with a chronology of what happened, the factual scenario. They will make recommendations as to how to resolve what those facts lead to. The recommendations will be reviewed by career supervisors in the Department of Justice and in the FBI, and by the FBI director. And then, as is the common process, they present it to me, and I fully expect to accept their recommendations.
Now, what's interesting here is you say you fully expect to accept the recommendations. One thing people were saying this morning when the news broke was that you were, quote, recusing yourself from having any kind of role in the final determination. Is that the case? Is that what you're saying?
Well, a recusal would mean that I wouldn't even be briefed on what the findings were or what the actions going forward would be. And while I don't have a role in those findings, in coming up with those findings or making those recommendations as to how to go forward, I'll be briefed on it, and I will be accepting their recommendations.
And when you say, again, this must be the journalist in me and the linguist in me, accepting to me means, here, Madam Attorney General, here are our findings, and you completely accept them wholeheartedly and then issue them to the public, or you accept them, look them over, and then make your own determination as to what the final determination will be?
No, the final determination as to how to proceed will be contained within the recommendations in the report in whatever format the team puts it together. That has not been resolved. Whatever report they provide to me. There will be a review of their investigation. There will be a review of what they have found and determined to have happened and occurred, and there will be their determinations as to how they feel that the case should proceed.
And when you say there will be a review, you mean the review will be done by you once you accept the recommendations and determinations, or you're talking about the process of the review
I'm talking about the
point.
initial process of how this case will be resolved. This case will be resolved by the team that's been working on it from the beginning. Supervisors always review matters. In this case, that review will be career people within the Department of Justice, and also the FBI will review it, up to and including the FBI director, and that will be the finalization of not just the factual findings, but the next steps in this matter.
And I find it interesting, several times now you've made a point of saying career prosecutors, career officials within the Justice Department. Why are you making that very hard distinction, that description?
And I think a lot of the questions that I've gotten over the past several months, frankly, about my role in this investigation and what it would likely be, was a question or a concern about whether someone who was a political appointee would be involved in deciding how to investigate a matter, or what something meant, or how should the case proceed going forward. And as I've always said, that this matter would be handled by the career people who are independent. They live from administration to administration. Their role is to follow the facts and follow the law and make a determination as to what happened and what those next steps should be. But, you know, in my role as Attorney General, there are cases that come up to me. I am informed of them from time to time. This case, as you know, has generated a lot of attention. I'll be informed of those findings as opposed to reading them or never seeing them, but I will be accepting their recommendations and their plan for going forward.
So the New York Times reported this morning that the Justice Department officials said back in April that what you're talking about right now was already being considered. And so the question is, before President Clinton boarded your plane in Arizona, had you already made the determination that what you're announcing today was indeed what you were going to do?
Yes, I had already determined that that would be the process. And in large part it's because, as I'm sure you know, as a journalist, I do get this question a lot. And as I've said on occasions as to why we don't talk about ongoing investigations in terms of what's being discussed and who's being interviewed, is to preserve the integrity of that investigation. We also typically don't talk about the process by which we make decisions, and I've provided that response too. But in this situation, you know, because I did have that meeting, it has raised concerns, I feel. And I feel that while I can certainly say this matter is going to be handled like any other, as it has always been, it's going to be resolved like any other, as it was always going to be, I think people need the information about exactly how that resolution will come about in order to know what that means and really accept that and have faith in the ultimate decision of the Department of Justice.
So back to my first question, the what were you thinking question. But let me put it different.